All right. Hey guys, welcome to the Swish. Thanks for checking us out. This is a new episode. It's episode 47. I'm your host, Ivan Mora, and my co-host, Rafael Nieto. Unfortunately, couldn't be here today, but we will definitely catch him on the next episode. So thank you for tuning in. Guys, today I'm excited to introduce our guest. Let me give you a little intro on him. He is the former writer and editor for Project Spurs. You can check them out via Twitter at Project Spurs. And he is the current associate editor for Fansided and site expert for its Spurs team page, which is called Alamo. Be sure to check him out as well. Welcome to the Swish, Josh Paredes.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for accepting the invitation.
Yeah.
I wanted to first start off by introducing you, talking a little bit more about your fandom for the Spurs, where you started and everything. Where are you originally from?
Yeah, so I say San Antonio just because I lived here since around 95. I was born in Laredo, but was living in Corpus as a kid. I moved here about like third grade, so pretty much from San Antonio. And, around that time is pretty much when things started to heat up for the Spurs. Pretty much a very good time to grow up a Spurs fan because, 97 is when all the magic started happening with Duncan being drafted. So it was easy to be a Spurs fan during that time. And I just was, as the years went by, just always all about the Spurs and would go to games, watch games, had, their jerseys. I would use Duncan in my passwords. It's just always been all about the Spurs. And so, it's kind of a match made in heaven when I started writing about the Spurs, which is really awesome.
Yeah, and you could tell with your background there, you have the San Antonio Express news on Tim's retirement, and on the other side, you have just the Hall of Famers, the Spurs three. Those are pretty cool. Where'd you get those?
Yeah, actually, the one over here with the big three, it was pretty random. I think it was maybe like a Spurs forum where somebody was like, they had it and they just were gonna give it away to somebody. I don't know why they didn't want it.
Oh,
And they're like, I was like, I'll take it. And they're like, yeah, meet me at like the wing stop and and I'll just hand it off to you. So I remember that one. And that's for the Adios Tim. That's from the local paper that I just framed because, it was a huge deal when he was retiring, and it kind of still is because they've never been the same since, obviously. But yeah, this is just kind of, I actually would use this setup for Project Spurs. This is like an upstairs little office that I would record from with them, so that's why I kind of just have it set up in the background.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's okay. I mean, they're awesome. I mean, especially the Tim Duncan's retirement and everything. Sad time. So 2014, were you able to celebrate that finals victory?
Oh man, of course. I mean, there was so much around that season that was, we call them the redeem team because of, you're very familiar with what happened the year before with the Heat. So that was quite a couple of years with that whole rivalry and those two back-to-back finals, two of the best finals. Well, I mean, the first one was just great in terms of basketball because it could have been anybody's. And of course, as a Spurs fan, the second one was really good just because the Spurs were really pissed and you could tell.
Well, I'm actually a Heat fan, so trust me.
Yeah.
But I lived in San Antonio for a while, probably like 6-7 years, and I'm from Laredo, so I'm nothing against the Spurs. I respect them, I follow them and everything, but I've been a Heat fan since Dwayne Wade got drafted from his Marquette days. Mm-hmm. So trust me, it was really hard rooting for Miami down here in Laredo and watching that final.
Yeah.
And the following
week,
God. Like, all right, you know what? We went 1-1, so we're good.
We each had our turn, man. That was the first time I cried after a game, was after Game 7 of 2013. I mean, it might have been because I had something to drink, but I was just still upset about Game 6.
About Game 6. I'll be honest with you. I was so furious, and I think I turned off the TV. I'm about to go upstairs, and then I get these alerts, and I'm like, okay, no, I messed up, and I went back. And saw it in time, but I was.
What a roller coaster that whole time was, man.
I was just pissed because I knew for a fact I was going to start getting phone calls and telling me off and like stuff like that. So I was like, all right, whatever. Okay. I wanted to ask you, talk about the Fansided network. That's where you're currently writing right now for their San Antonio Spurs, Air Alamo. I always love talking about how everyone got their start. Me as a fellow writer that I've been doing this for a while. I mean, writer, blogger, whatever you want to call it, but I actually really, really admire and I love writing. I think it's a passion of mine, which I assume for you as well. So with the Air Alamo, which is part of the Fansided network, for everyone out there listening, or if you're going to catch this podcast later on, definitely check out Fansided. It's a great website. Has a lot of fan sites, and it's actually expanded to more stuff as well as entertainment side. And I mean, I think they have over, I don't know how many websites right now, but
A
it's
lot.
yeah. So talk a little bit about that. When did you start writing for them?
Yeah, so my very first job writing about basketball was October 2018. I did some for Sixers Wire. They're like under USA Today. And
Oh,
then I did that for a little bit just to kind of get my foot in the door. And then it was October 2019 is when I got my first, you know, position with Air Alamo. I was just contributing,
okay.
at that point. And so a month into that, there was an opening that came up for site expert at Air Alamo, but I had just been there for a month, so I applied for it, but they already had someone lined up, which I understand. But they did offer me the Rockets one for Space City Scoop,
Oh, okay.
and so yeah, that one was very interesting because you probably know if you're in Laredo, like Spurs and Rockets fans don't like each
Yeah.
other, and
I think
that
I'm
was the
Laredo. I think I only have two or three of my friends that are Rockets fans, and it's always a mess. So, but
yeah, man.
how
And
was
then
that? If you being a Spurs fan, how did you feel weird covering the Rockets or?
oh, it was very interesting, man. Like I remember when he first, emailed me back and said, "Well, we do have this opening." I was like, honestly, I don't know if I can do that. Like I would have to write all these positive things about James Harden and and
Really can't do
Russell Westbrook. This was that year.
Oh, okay.
So that was the one season Russell Westbrook was there is the one I covered for Space City. And so I eventually did it, of course, because I wanted to move up, and that's just a way. And I knew then that I can cover any team. That was probably the team I despised the most, and I
Yeah.
was covering them. So it was very interesting because I would watch the games for coverage, but I would root against them every time.
Yeah.
And so, and right, why James Harden should maybe be MVP, just kind of come up with objective reasons instead of my own.
So
So, and sometimes I would take little digs at them, and it was fun to sneak those in there. But then eventually, I found my place with the Spurs again, another opening, did site expert for a while, and then in October of last year, they hired me full time to be an editor. So now I can kind of float around and do different sites, but I specialize in Spurs for sure.
that's awesome. So that's your full-time job. Like you're an editor at Fanside.
Yeah, full time. It's been crazy. Like I know how hard it is to get a full time job covering the NBA just in general,
Yeah.
and to be able to. And I actually didn't really apply for a while. I think I could have gotten it sooner, but I thought it was more of like you're gonna have to know about every team and write about every team, which I wasn't sure I could do yet. But then when I talked to them about it, they were like, "No, you'll be like Spurs plus. Like you're gonna keep writing for the Spurs, but do a lot more of it, just so we can, keep that traffic up and keep that presence growing." And so it's been a dream come true. I'm very proud that I was able to break through in this when I really didn't really see this as an option even like 5 years ago.
I mean, honestly, that's awesome. Congrats on that because I've been with Fansided also for a while, just as a contributor, and I really like their layout. I like the articles, content, and even if it's just basically fans writing their own opinions or analysis or anything. I mean, people really underestimate that there's some actually passionate fans that do their research. They're
For
not just
sure.
writing out of frustration or excitement or anything. They actually do their research. They actually get some are credentialed for some games, which is also pretty cool. What triggered you to get your passion for writing? Like, how did that come about? Well, was that something you did in high school and college, or?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I never really did any of that in school. I didn't really specialize in it. I didn't take any special classes. I was a psychology major, so those don't really, unless you really go for your master's or something, you don't really do much with a psych major. So I always just had a passion for basketball, and then I guess I noticed kind of that I was good at in English class, and I was kind of like a grammar Nazi at times with texts and always correcting people and noticing little mistakes, and my wife would get irritated with that. So I always joke that it kind of eventually paid off because you know after when I started to have more availability to work unpaid, when
Okay.
she came around is kind of when I was able to start doing that. And I didn't really like do much writing before that. And once I started doing Sixers Wire, and then they told me, I had some talent, and I started gaining, from them. I started gaining from the Rockets different skills, and it's kind of just happened that I can write, and I didn't really go to school for it, but
Oh, that's
if
awesome, bro.
you focus enough and train yourself and stuff, use Grammarly and stuff like
Yeah.
that, then it'll work out.
Did you pick up a lot of tips and advice from fellow like fan-sided writers?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and then there was an NBA division editor named Josh Wilson that helped me a lot. You know, yeah, he would always give me tips and, meet with me and stuff. So I learned a lot from him, probably the most from him, and even, from site co-experts. Like when I had at the Rockets, Anthony Duckett was someone else that me and him worked really well running the Rockets site.
Oh, nice.
So I just kind of refined my skills with each place I've been.
You talked about that you were in another what was it called, the 76ers one?
Yeah.
Okay, but what about Project Spurs? How did that come about? Because you were also an editor, right?
Yeah. So with them, yeah, Project Spurs was I love Project Spurs. They're like locally founded.
Awesome.
So I love that, and they just always have. They'll never do clickbaity type stuff like many other outlets will do. They have Paul Garcia there, who's very good at uh, reporting anything Spurs. He's always at games and covering them. I just reached out to Michael De Leon once and gave me a shot, and then pretty quickly worked my way up into like a leadership role with them, where I was showing up on some of their podcasts, and I was running social media for a while. I was running the Project Spurs social media account
Oh, okay.
for a bit. Yeah. So I that's just kind of like I started getting different skills from different things, and Project Spurs was a big part of that. That's kind of when I started doing more draft coverage stuff too. Just I never really paid attention to that before, and they have a guy there that does a lot of draft stuff, and yeah, they're really great group of people. I wish there was a way to do full time there, but obviously it's just a local company. It's not possible, but yeah,
Have your
great
hands
site.
full, and you have your hands full with fan-sided, and they're animals
Yeah.
pretty hard.
Yeah,
Uh,
and to their credit, I mean, they wanted me I wasn't able to stay in that bigger role for that long because this job came around, but Michael De Leon was completely supportive and just understanding and was happy, and he's done that with so many people in local news and stuff. They were all kind of started with Project Spurs. It's kind of like a stepping stone in San Antonio, like if you're going to cover the Spurs.
and I actually did see that he recently just passed away, right? I saw it on
Yeah.
Twitter. Yeah, my condolences. I don't know him personally. I've seen some of his stuff, but everything I've seen on Twitter is just extremely positive, and that he was a great guy. So I mean, I didn't know him personally, so my condolences there.
Yeah, it's been rough. I mean, we've been trying to honor him. It really just happened this week, so it's very shocking. But that it's been cool to see just how many people he helped, and even the Spurs themselves, they donated 1,000 to his GoFundMe, and the CEO donated another 1,000. Like that just shows you how much he meant to this community. Um, and what's cool about the GoFundMe, if you can probably find it on my Twitter or at some point, whoever listens to this, Josh 810, that they're going to cover his funeral, but then also the rest will go to a scholarship in his name to help other writers, like kind of like what he did. So it's really awesome to see the community kind of reach out and say what he meant to everybody, because he really just was a stepping stone for so many for so long.
Okay. Well, that's something great that the Spurs are doing and that the community is doing as well. So I
Yeah.
hope that brings a little peace to his family. And
Mhm.
I'm sorry to hear about that. I want to move a little bit now to talk about the Spurs, your specialty. Uh, with the current state of the Spurs this season and their roster, because I've had this discussion before with friends, with group chats, and my
Mhm.
co-host Rafa, who, by the way, actually just called me that like, hey, I'm running late. He might make it, he might not, but he gave me questions for you. But they're kind of related to what we're talking about.
Okay.
But right off the bat, I wanted to ask you, what personally, what is a better outcome for the Spurs moving forward? Complete tank or fight for the play-in games for experience?
That's tricky, man. And it's funny you mentioned that too, because I just published something 2 days ago called Should the Spurs Tank or Compete for the Play-In? Like
Yeah,
I literally just got that up. And what I did for that was because it's been all over Twitter, like
yeah,
what should they do? And people have their sides. And I sent a survey to my team of writers. It was just simple question, just should they tank or compete and why?
mhm.
And it was a 3-3 tie whenever I went through the survey. So I was like, okay, great. Now I have to be the tiebreaker. So
That difficult decision.
yeah, I'm like, well, I guess it should come down to me, I guess. I can't just leave it as a tie. So I was a deciding vote. I narrowly said to compete. And the main reason I have for that is that's what the Spurs themselves want to do. And
Okay.
I'm not really one to question Coach Pop or DeJounte Murray. They both spoken about it. Like Coach Pop said that, that he can't just ask his team to do that. They're not built that way. And DeJounte Murray especially is very competitive. If he suddenly was sitting a bunch of games or pulled when he shouldn't need to, when he doesn't need to be pulled, or even Devin Vassell commented about it also. Nobody wants to tank there. So who am I to say they should tank just because they might get, better odds?
Yeah.
And you're not going to out tank Orlando or Indiana or those teams that are way down, or the Houston Rockets, of course. You're not going to out tank those guys, and they're going to be like the top four is what everybody's looking for, right? Holmgren, Bankero,
They're
Ivy.
actually pretty close. I mean, they're what, one game? Last I checked, I think they're one right behind the Pelicans, if I'm not mistaken. And Lakers, I mean, just
Yeah,
now they're going up against the 76ers without LeBron James. He's resting.
right.
So, I mean, it's just a lot of like positive outcomes that could benefit the Spurs moving forward to actually make the play-in game.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot at stake in terms of their picks too, because they did a lot over the trade deadline to get picks. And if the Lakers keep losing, the more they lose, the better that second round pick gets. So there's a lot there that's going to work out for them, whether they go to the play-in tournament or not. I don't think it's going to change the pick that much if they make it or they don't.
Okay.
They're in that 7 or 8 range. They might
Regardless.
move up, they might move down. Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about the drafts right now, but before that, I wanted to ask you. Uh, at the start of the season, there's a lot of people that weren't sure about DeJounte Murray if he was going to be the player to take that step to cover DeMar DeRozan, and I actually would always argue that, you know what, he is a great player. You just, I mean, just got to have faith. He was out. Correct me if I'm wrong, for a certain amount of time with his ACL a while back.
Yeah,
So
like a full season. Yeah.
full season. So he's barely developing into the player he is. He was voted an all-star. So we all saw that jump, like the major jump he took this season. And he has immense potential. And I think, in my opinion, he's clearly the cornerstone for his team. I think he's the Spurs go-to guy. But besides him, who do you think is next in line? Keldon Johnson seems to be like the next obvious choice, especially after playing for Team USA. But do you think there's someone else, or do you think it's like the Spurs are Murray and Keldon's team?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, 100% agree that Murray is the one cornerstone. I think you can pretty solidly just write him down as the future of the Spurs. Whether they find someone else to pair with him or not is still up in the air. But if I had to pick, I kind of have tiers, I guess, with this roster. Murray is up there by himself, and then maybe 1A would be Keldon. I think, he kind of just had one thing he did really well in his first 2 seasons, and that was just barreling in and dunking or yelling and laying it in.
Mhm.
And now he's suddenly like a sniper from the outside, like shooting like over 40% and on a high volume, which came out of nowhere. So the fact that he's able to improve that so quickly, I think he really has potential. He could even be an all-star in the next few years.
Yeah,
Um,
and
just
especially
defensively, I'm not sure.
after that game with the Warriors, that he had that tip in. It just seems that the energy's there, and he's still a young player. So I think him and Murray are pretty much that 1-2 combo punch for the Spurs. Are there any surprises though that you've enjoyed? I mean, whether it's been a Spurs game in particular or some of the young players' productions. The draft pick Joshua Primo. How do you pronounce it? Polto. The
Oh yeah, I think it's Pirtle. We all say Pirtle
Pirtle. Yeah, I always pronounce names super wrong.
because nobody knows, honestly.
Basel. Am I saying that right as
Yeah,
well?
Vassell's good. Yeah.
Or even Josh Richardson coming in that Derek White trade. Josh Richardson actually used to be with Miami, so I like the kind of player that he is, but obviously he's not a game changer. But what do
Right.
you think about these young players' potential? What do you think about Josh Richardson? Just any surprises there?
Josh Richardson's been great since I think he's shooting like 48% from three or something since being on the Spurs, which is crazy. Not obviously not sustainable, but that's really good,
Of course.
especially Doug McDermott. Yeah. Just went out. But I think the best surprise that for this season was the trade deadline and what they did. And that everybody knows, or everybody knows down here that the Spurs like never make in-season trades. The last time was like 6 years ago or something, even
Yeah, I
longer
remember
maybe.
last time.
And yeah, so when they unload Thaddeus Young to get a first round pick, they get another first round pick with the Derek White trade, which is another surprise there. That one was a shocker, but also I get it. Like, they got two more first rounders on that trade deadline, and they freed up space for guys like Devin Vassell and Josh Primo and Lonnie Walker, like that whole logjam that the Spurs had. Even though Derek White's a great player, he did kind of regress with his 3-point shot a lot, and that's a big part of his game. And he's still kind of struggling in Boston with that, but he's really a glue guy that they need. It was a win-win trade for sure.
Yeah,
But as far as the surprise, definitely their trade deadline. I couldn't believe they did all that, and that really shows they are moving forward with that rebuild finally, which they should have done maybe a couple of years ago.
yeah. When I saw the trade, I immediately thought, well, you know what? Derek White's value isn't that high. I think the Spurs definitely won. But Derek White's actually he's struggling, but he seems to be a good fit with the Celtics, and it's something that they needed. He's still a very good defensive player, so
Yeah.
I thought it was like you said, it's a win-win, and it's something that the Spurs needed moving forward. That's what I wanted to talk to you about when I said about the draft picks, and you clearly mentioned it right now. And that's one of the questions that Rafa texted me. He's saying that he's not going to be able to make it, that he's sorry, but he wants to
Mhm.
know with the offseason, what do you think it holds for them? They have cap space. I think they have around 33 million, and they have three
Right.
first rounders. What do you think they're going to do with those three first rounders? Do you cover anything regarding like draft, like college players? Do you have anyone in mind, or maybe a trade coming up?
Yeah. So the great thing is they have so many options they can do now. I mean, with those three picks, there's been a lot of talk. I mean, I don't have inside information, but just what we expect, just given that the roster has to have a certain amount of people, and drafting three and signing them all, it doesn't seem likely.
Uh-huh.
There's been some talk of maybe those picks from Boston and Toronto being packaged to move up another, to another maybe lottery pick,
Okay.
or trying to even package a player like Josh Richardson with some picks to move up into even higher. That somebody that would want a veteran like that. They really can just go a lot of different ways with it. I would love for them to pick up a mobile power forward that can defend the pick and roll and switch and guard people on the perimeter. That's the Spurs' biggest weakness. So obviously, like most of the top guys could do that, Chet and Paolo. But it might be tough getting up to that point with all these tanking teams. So
Yeah.
um, a trade to do that would be awesome, but barring that, they might go for someone like Keegan Murray at 7 or 8 if he slips that far. There's just so many ways they can go about it with all their picks. They even have a second rounder from LA that's getting better and better as the LA keeps struggling. So
Yeah.
a lot of ways they can go.
What do you want them to do? Like if you were the general manager and you had that decision on your hands, would you, and not saying a specific player, just maybe I would
Right.
go for a center or a power forward, or like what do you want personally for them?
Yeah, so I've been beating this drum for a while now at Alamo, and it's very evident when the Spurs play the Grizzlies, especially because they have Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant running the pick and roll, which is a nightmare. And the Spurs do not have a big that can guard on the perimeter and also run back and cover the paint on switches or anyone mobile like that. Like they have Pirtle, great interior shot blocker, one of the best, like most underrated defenders in the league, but he's not going to get out on the perimeter and also be able to switch and get back and block shots like Bam can do or something. So somebody with that versatility that can uh, defend kind of both and also have some kind of a jump shot. Pirtle doesn't have a jumper at all. He just has a little baby hook and like a pop-a shot type of deal. He's one of those centers. So that would be my ideal outcome. At least get one of those that can be a game changer because the Spurs are not far off at all. They just have that one big hole. And it's really evident when you play someone like Memphis. That's why they lost to them like 5 times in a row.
Yeah, and of course, no one expected Ja Morant to take that leap and
Right.
the position that they are. But yeah, I totally get you. I mean, with 3 draft picks, you kind of expect them to be very active in the offseason. So I mean, it's a great position that they're in actually. So we'll see what happens. Besides the Spurs offseason draft picks and everything, I want to ask you, what do you think is going to happen with Coach Pop? I want to give a little bit of information here.
Sure.
Which honestly, I don't need to. Everyone knows Coach Pop. Everyone knows who he is and everything. But he's been the San Antonio Spurs head coach since 1996. I mean, that's ridiculous. I think if he's not the longest coach, or he is definitely the longest active coach. I don't know in history, but he's been 26 years with them, and over 13,300 wins later, he has now passed Hall of Famer Don Nelson as the NBA's all-time wins list. Nelson tallied 1,335 wins over 2,398 regular season games. Coach Pop did it in 2,030 games, which is crazy. It's 300 less games. It's more than crazy. It's impressive. It's amazing. Everyone loves Pop. What do you think? Besides, he has his 5 rings. He has a Team USA gold. And I even think as a coach and an assistant coach, and even has a bronze medal when they were in Athens in 2004, and just so many accolades under his belt, so many achievements. He's just an amazing coach. But next year is his final season in his contract. I was checking that out. Do you think is that definitely going to be his last, or do you think he really wants to see how this rebuilding team takes their final? Not their final, like how it actually ends up
Right.
coming.
So yeah, I personally, I mean, obviously with San Antonio, you never know. They keep everything very in-house and you never can really speculate much of anything. But personally, I wouldn't bet on him retiring after this season for sure, just because I kind of noticed you brought up the Olympic gold. Since then, like, he's kind of softened up a bit and got re-energized and just really back into the thrill of coaching. It's probably was a little bit getting a little bit tough there with the DeRozan and Aldridge era, where they were just kind of paddling around and not really making a decision to do one thing or the other.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can tell he loves this young group and he probably wants to hopefully go out on a winning season.
Yeah.
This is going to be the 3rd straight that they haven't, and seeing the competitor in him, he might want to do that. But also, just since that Olympic gold, he said himself, this a huge weight went off his shoulders because that was such a goal of his since I believe he tried out for the Olympic team in like the 70s and he didn't make it. And since then, it's like he's been trying to do something for the Team USA, and that kind of reinvigorated him, I think. So I think we'll see him another season. But for a little inside info that I've recently shared, Mark Stein has been talking about, for, like NBA analyst Mark Stein has been talking about if Quinn Snyder becomes available, that would be a nice passing of the torch, because he used to coach the Austin Toros down,
Oh wow. Yeah.
the D League team. But he's kind of speculating on that. But he's said it a couple of times now that if Utah's a team to watch, if they disappoint again and they want to part ways with Quinn, that might be too tempting for Pop to just kind of, hey, it's your turn, I don't want a farewell tour, which is what he would do.
Yeah.
That would be a very interesting. I would be all about that. I love Quinn, and at this point, Popovich has done everything he can. He doesn't owe anyone anything. He can go to the games, have wine, whatever he wants to
Yeah,
do.
exactly.
But
Already
if Quinn Snyder, yeah,
It's
yeah,
also very telling that Becky Hammond got that head coaching job with the WNBA with the Vegas Aces. So you're actually right that that could be a sign that if that doesn't happen with Utah, then you will probably get like another contract, maybe not a long one, but maybe another short contract extension with Coach Pop. So I mean, that'd be awesome to see. Everyone still loves Coach Pop. So I guess all eyes are going to be on Utah as well.
yeah. And I would have loved to see. I was a fan of Becky Hammond being the next coach, and I was hoping it would be next year. But obviously, she has a contract now, so that won't happen. Maybe down the road, but we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, coming back to Air Alamo, you've written with them for a while. It's going on what, like 3 years, I think. What do you like to cover more for them? I mean, this is just like as a me being a writer. Also, I really like talking about this because I've done them all. So, is it game previews? Is it game recaps? Is it breaking news? Player profiles? The top 5 questions or concerns or issues? Like what is it that you say, okay, this is my go-to, this is what I've found some
Mhm.
familiarity with, and I'm going to move forward with this.
Yeah, I mean, the previews, the recaps, the profiles, they're all going to be there. You're going to see them on different sites, and there's value in those. But I really enjoy the most are the ones where I find something that's happening within the Spurs, or even on Twitter or something. Just somebody says something dumb about the Spurs aren't a dynasty or anything like that, and I like to cover those because people are very passionate about the Spurs. It's the only major team in San Antonio, so anytime I can get something like that. Robert Ory has a podcast, or he always trashes the Spurs even though he won 2 titles with them.
It's weird.
That's right. That's what I say. So, but those are always,
I actually didn't know that. I'm going to check that out.
yeah, I think it's called Big Shot Bob or something.
Okay.
Something like that. He has a podcast where mostly just BSing around, but whenever he has quotes about the Spurs, I like to cover those because nobody really is, and even though they probably don't really care what about his opinion, I think they'd want to know about somebody that was kind of a big deal in the 2005 championship. Like
Yeah.
he hit that huge shot in the finals, so he has some place in history here. But I just like to cover those kinds of things just because it's different. I like to give. I do all of it basically. When you do a full-time job now, and they
Yeah.
want you to get up, 2 or 3 posts every day, whether it's with you or like writers that you're working with, then you just cover every type of thing. That's why when people ask me, why are you posting about what Robert Ory is saying? It's like, well, you try to come up with 3 topics every day.
Yeah. You need to be creative. You need to find something new. And
Yeah.
I actually need to check out that Ori podcast. The one I listen to a lot, and I'm sure you have too, and a lot of people, is the JJ Redick one, the
Yeah.
old 3. That one's great. I actually really, really think the NBA or ESPN did a great job in bringing him on as an commentator, because he's good. He knows the game very well, and he's not afraid to say what
Yeah.
either.
Did you happen to catch the Patrick Beverly one?
Yeah, yeah, that was crazy. I didn't expect that either.
I thought he would, like, he's not really likable at all to me on the court. And I thought maybe we'll see the human side of him on the episode, but he was kind of even more of a right? Like,
Basically what you think Patrick Beverly is,
yeah,
what you thought on the podcast. And it's like,
yes.
dude, help yourself, man. Like, and I don't know if you
Like
saw
calling
it.
to be a defensive player of the year and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, come on, man.
And did you see, I think it was last, because I saw in a highlight 2 days ago that he actually tries to get into players' heads, and he tried to do that with Luca. That's
Yeah,
his ass, and Luca just pulled
yeah,
like a three. I think,
that was funny. I enjoyed that. I don't. That guy is something else, man.
yeah, I'm not a fan of Beverly, but I
Yeah,
mean, that's how players are sometimes. So
yeah.
uh,
Some. Yeah.
it's almost playoff time. What do you think? What are your predictions? I know the Spurs are going to be very iffy with their playing, if they're going to
Right.
make it or not. But I mean, besides that, do you think the Suns are a lock for the West? Do you think someone's going to give them an upset, challenge them, and in the East as well? I mean, I know my prediction and what I want for Miami Heat, but I mean, what do you think out of the West and the East?
Yeah, well, first of all, we can get the Spurs out of the way. If they happen to make the play-in, they probably won't make it out, so it's probably not worth, and that's probably better. So, in terms of who might come out of the West, Phoenix is probably still the team to beat, but it really, Chris Paul's approaching 37, and he tends to get injured at crucial times. Maybe it has to do with the wear and tear of the season, and I know he has a wrist or thumb thing right now.
Yeah,
It'll depend on that. The Grizzlies have had an amazing run that I did not expect this kind of record from them, but
me neither. It's been crazy. It's something that I don't think anyone expected, honestly.
no, I mean, like so many people, like Desmond Bain, we didn't expect that. Jaren Jackson Jr.
But the
kind of
Grizzlies are
did.
they're sorry to interrupt, but they're a very likable team, though. I mean, honestly, when Miami lost to them, I was like, dude, this team is good.
Yeah,
Of the grit and grind Grizzlies of what was it, 2012, 2013,
right.
and it just has a lot of resemblance, and they have a bright future. So if you were to tell me, I know I'm asking you, but sorry, if you were to tell me, I'd be
No,
like, I would love Memphis to get out of the first round. I mean, I would like them to upset, be like the Dallas Mavericks that never got out of the first round, or haven't for them to be that team and just surprise. I mean, the Dallas
yeah,
Mavericks also a very good team right now.
yeah, and you make a good point that they are all likable. I think only Dylan Brooks is the only unlikable guy in the Grizzlies, but everyone else, Kyle Anderson was on the Spurs before.
Yeah,
Uh, he's a great player too, and I would say they're a dark horse, but I would probably say they're too inexperienced to actually come out, obviously, but they could win a round or two. Who else is on the top of the West? Utah, they always seem to blow it for whatever reason. I don't know what
yeah,
happens to them in the playoffs.
and I really like Donovan Mitchell, but I just
Yeah.
missing some pieces. And
Yeah.
I don't want to just say Suns. I want to say someone else is going to surprise, but you also see the injuries are affecting the Warriors right now.
Right.
I mean, if anyone has a chance, I thought it would be them. But I mean, besides that,
Same.
I think it probably has to be Suns, and hopefully Chris Paul doesn't get injured. But I think they have a clear shot.
Yeah. I mean, I would have said Warriors too, but with the Curry stuff and all these nagging things, Wiseman,
Yeah,
I don't really know that they have enough. And they've been on a kind of a streak of losing now. They just lost to the Spurs on that crazy tip. And so
yeah. But out on the East, I know the West has always been more competitive and better teams, but the East seems way more competitive right now, especially
yeah.
with the top teams. And the Bulls started off good. Now they've lost. They're on a losing streak, and they're actually haven't won. I don't know what their record is exactly right now, but I think against top East teams, or not only East, top teams in the NBA,
Yeah.
they're like a combined record of 0-10 or something like that. So it's crazy. Uh, I obviously want to be biased and say Miami, but I don't know if you just saw the news today, literally probably an hour or 2
Yeah.
hours ago,
I know
about
what you're talking about.
the New York vaccine mandate that they're going to remove it. So Kyrie Irving is now going to play home games.
How convenient.
That pisses me off. Yes, how
I
come?
know.
Like how? Like, is this like an inside job, or is it, what is going on? That shouldn't be right.
I tweeted about this like last a few weeks ago when they were still talking about the mandate, and I said I'm gonna guess that the mandate's going to be lifted right around April, just conveniently. I don't know why. I just have a feeling. And sure enough, before it even comes around, they lift it. So
It's crazy because Kyrie Irving doesn't play the full season. He only plays in some games. I mean, obviously, we're not going to get into the whole vaccine or anything
yeah,
like that, right?
right.
But it just seems like a lot of things are falling into place. Kevin Durant was injured. and I think he took way more time than what his injury was. They traded for Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is out, but I mean, I wouldn't put it past them for him to conveniently be ready to go
Yeah.
a game or two before the playoffs. So, I mean, with all their luck or whatever's happening with them, that it's all coming together, do you think if they even end up in the play-in, I'm pretty sure they'll get out. But do you think they'll upset Miami if Miami stays?
So what I wrote, like when I was thinking, is talent wise, the Nets probably should win just because superstars, and Irving's crazy still, even though he's a part-time player. Yeah, but if I absolutely had to choose, I think Miami is solid enough, consistent enough. They have a top 5 defense for probably most of the year, I'm guessing, and Jimmy and Bam and Tyler Hero always kills the Spurs, I notice, and probably everyone else. So they have a lot of things. I would say personally, as a fan, I'm rooting for Miami or Milwaukee just because I don't like the whole super team phase. I don't like Brooklyn. I don't like Philly doing that either. But it's very interesting that Kyrie can suddenly play, and talent wise, that might just throw a whole wrench into everything. If I had to just pick right now, I would probably say Milwaukee, but maybe Milwaukee and Miami are like 1 and 1A.
Because the Nets, they're conveniently getting out. But sorry, not the Nets. I was gonna say the 76ers. I'm not a fan of Harden, and I'm pretty sure you're
Hell no.
Even though you cover the Rockets, you don't like him. But when I saw that trade, I actually thought, you know what, 76ers probably got the better end of this deal, just because I like the pairing. And everyone really underestimates Maxey and Fabio with the 76ers. I mean, they just beat Miami on Monday without Embiid and Harden, and I was like, wow. So
Oh yeah.
I think like how we went with a dark horse with Memphis in the West, I think in the East, if all healthy, I think Philadelphia and I think just Philadelphia might be the dark horse, because
Boston kind of has been making noise
Boston,
since
actually, Boston would be a dark horse, but with Boston, it's like more of a dark horse that they have a chance, and with Philly and the Nets, it's championship or bust, in my opinion, because of all the moves they made and all
Right.
they try to do. So, I mean, I'm hoping it'll be Miami, even Milwaukee. I'm a huge fan of Giannis. I mean, honestly, the last interview we did with Maren Fader talking about Giannis, and I don't know if you read the book, but it's amazing. Honestly, his story is crazy. Very humble guy. So I wouldn't want it to be a repeat of Bucks Suns just because something different. But I mean, who knows? We'll see. So those are predictions.
Yeah, give us Bucks Grizzlies or Heat Grizzlies or something. I'll take that.
Okay. Well, we're nearing already towards the end, so I just got 2 more questions for you before we round this out. One was actually a question, and you don't know my co-host, but if you ever meet him, he's a very dedicated, passionate, kind of intense Spurs fan, and his questions are paragraphs. So he wrote a paragraph of a question, but I'll just shorten it for you.
Okay.
Lately, there's been a lot of talk, and mainly I think it's around just like communities talking about the Spurs and everything. And there's been conversation that Austin is a must grab in terms of branding territory. That if the Spurs should in the future move to Austin, in other words, is it critical that Austin be Spurs country? How how the whole Tesla is moving over there, and Austin's becoming a bigger city and better branding with Austin FC. So the question is, how important should the Spurs brand be right now for the community of San Antonio compared to like moving them to Austin, for example?
I've seen minimal talk about any kind of move. It kind of gets funny that talk about this comes up after just like 3 losing seasons after like
exactly.
22.
It's kind of weird that
22 of like winning 50. Yeah. So, but I mean, obviously, to me, there's absolutely zero danger of them having to move. As far as getting the Austin market, of course, that'd be great to have. I mean, they already have the Austin Spurs, so there's that connection. But I know that there is a like state-of-the-art facility being planned for Northwest San Antonio, which is where I live, which I'm happy about. There's like training facility is going to be like events there and like viewing parties and all this. I think it's multiple thing, like a whole campus that they're planning. So it's like it's like I mean, that's not something you do if you're planning to move to Austin or Vegas or anywhere someone's talking about. So, I mean, important to get that market share, but they're in San Antonio for good. I don't see any reason they're going to be moved just because they finally are starting to lose.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. So final question, and it's just something fun to just take the conversation, shift it a little bit. But I always like to ask this at the end of every interview because it's related to basketball also. But and I don't know if you're a huge movie guy or not, but what is your favorite basketball related or basketball themed movie, if you have any?
Yeah, no, I do. So I actually started, I think in like 2016 or something, just for fun. I've started to like track my movies on IMDb and try to watch 100 every year.
Oh, nice.
So like, yeah, so I have since 2016, I have like a list of like, and also I would sometimes forget what I watched or if I had seen it before. So I'd want to be like, let me see if I had seen it. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a big movie guy just because it's, I like psychological thrillers and stuff like that, but I have seen a lot of the main ones, White Men Can't Jump and Air Bud, and not psychological thrillers, but basketball
Yeah.
movies. And I recently, the one I saw recently, I really enjoyed was Coach Carter.
Oh, nice.
That one, and it's kind of bonus because I don't know if you know that Samuel L. Jackson was like a pretty big Spurs fan at one point.
Actually, I didn't.
So yeah, there's like you can look it up. There's like he had like an Instagram post where he's wearing the shirt, and it might have been around 2014 or one of those championships where he was like all happy. But he was for a good few years like posting about the Spurs. There's probably tweets dating back or whatever, but I like the movie itself and just him as an actor, so I got to go with that.
All right, I'll definitely check that out. For me, it's Hoosiers. It's an old movie, but it's good. But also, Coach Carter was also one that I liked, and well, like you said, A White Man Can't Jump. It's also a very, very good movie. I feel like I'm missing some movies, but I don't know. I'll just check them out later. I mean, that's
Space Jam, I guess.
yeah, like just like
A
the
New Legacy.
but well, Josh, man, hey, I appreciate it. That was fun. Thank you for being here, for giving us an hour of your time to hop on and talk Spurs and NBA. For anyone there out listening or checking this podcast out later, you could check out all of Josh's work via Twitter. His Twitter handle is at Josh810. That's correct, right?
Yes.
At Josh810. And also check everything that Fansided is doing, and especially Air Alamo. Their Twitter handle is at Air Alamo. And along with his team of Fansided writers, trust me, it's a very great, entertaining, and reliable source to check everything NBA related and anything else. I mean, they have a huge website and huge following. So check them out. Also, be sure to subscribe and follow on all our Swish social media outlet, guys. We're on Facebook and recently on YouTube and Spotify under the Swish, and on Instagram and Twitter under the Swish Radio. Hey, Josh, thank you for coming on. Anything else you want to add before we take off here?
No, that's it. Just thanks for having me. I'm always down to talk Spurs or any type of basketball. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, guys. So thanks, Josh. I appreciate it, man. This was great. We're definitely gonna keep an eye on the Spurs, see what happens.
Yeah, there's probably not going to be a lot of events, a lot of eventful stuff, but you never know. They played the Blazers 3 times, so they could maybe make the play-in.
We're actually gonna play right now, right?
Yeah, not till 9 though.
Oh, okay, perfect. Miami's playing right now, so I'm gonna catch that right now.
Okay, cool.
Perfect, man. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, and we'll keep in touch via Twitter.
Yeah, let me know when it's going up, and I'll share it and all that stuff.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, man.